Hey everybody, welcome to 36 Charge, a podcast about competitive Warhammer 40k, the state of the game and community news. We are streaming live on Twitch every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. I am your host, Chris Vo. Joining me tonight is Kevin Lieb.
Howdy, howdy.
And Benjamin Rubenstein.
Hey everyone.
Hey, so it's been a couple of weeks now since the balance data slate or balance patch has been released by GW, and we're starting to finally actually see like the impact of it. We've done some testing of our own with the changes that have been wrought. Most notably, we have a super major result now with the Austin Open having concluded. And right now, the winner of that was Richard Siegler. So Siegler has won all 3 U.S. Opens so far. There's one left. Let's see if he can pull off the quadfecta. But yeah, this is the first super major with the data slate in effect. But before we get on to talking about that, let's share some experiences of ours with the data slate. Ben and Kevin, do you guys want to start?
Sure. We went to a doubles event this weekend, and my half of the list was 7 Chaos Armigers, Knight Armigers. And it felt really good, like unbelievably powerful to just have Armigers, which are already like efficient as far as tankiness and killing go, to just also all of a sudden be OBSEC and like open up secondaries. Like, I don't know, they can move 14 inches, advance, and still declare charges. So all of a sudden, and then in melee they make 10 attacks, sitting on 3s, AP3, 1 damage, exploding 6s, and all of a sudden you're just like, well, this can kind of just catapult onto any objective, kick your OBSEC off of it, be a 5 OBSEC bodies, and all of a sudden now I'm just like, we're looking at like 4 objective maps and going, yeah, we're going to take Stranglehold. And that felt real good. So yeah, the Knight thing is very interesting. Big Knights still just have some fundamental issues, but Kevin and I have been bouncing back and forth. We've been bouncing back and forth like 10 plus Armiger lists pretty much since this podcast started, and now we're looking at those lists, just like the exact same list again. Oh wow, these are a lot better than they were last week, and they were close last week. Now it's just like, this is probably just a thing. If you just like put 9 Warglaves and some number of Moriaxes on the table and just start pushing them at your opponent, like you're just going to be smashing the primary.
Yeah.
When when the Chaos Knights Codex dropped, I remember reading Don Hussein's take on it, and he put forth that, like, point for point, like the Chaos Warglaive was probably one of the better units, like probably the best unit in the book in terms of points efficiency.
I think that's still true. They've actually only gone down.
Yeah. As I was going to say, I think they've only gotten more points efficient compared to Big Knights, because I think most Big Knights went up a little bit and they went down.
Yeah, and then they nerfed all of the like double gun Chaos Knights that were like marginally viable. And then because only the Forge World Knights are any good, and the Chaos Forge World Knights still don't have the right keywords, GW, please fix it to use any of the strats from the actual Chaos Knight book. Yeah, like the Warglaive is just the best thing, and it's not close. And I don't know, you could convince me just to like play 9 Warglaives and 6 Moriaxes and call this a good list. I think it is. But in 1,000 points on the doubles, like our 7 Warglaves were like easily our MVPs. Like the Iron Hand's half the list. It's Iron Hands. It's a Mega Dreadnought. It's always good. But like, the Warglaves just scored all the points. And at the end of the day, you win with points. And the damage output is decent. Like it's just good damage output. The fact that they have like this sweep mode where they just can walk into 10 guardsmen and like pick up enough of the guardsmen that they now control the objective. Because the old math in the guardsman was like, all right, you run to the guardsman, you like a bad swing into guardsman has you killing like 6 of them. Usually you're looking at killing like 7 or 8. And then your opponent would spend 2 CP, auto pass morale, they're OBSEC, you don't have the objective, too bad. And now, like, you kill 6 guardsmen, you're like, all right, I don't care if you make morale, it's my objective. I'm 5 bodies. And that's just, and now all of a sudden your opponent has to put like piles of guardsmen on objectives, and then you're just getting good shots off, and it's all great. That's the guardsman analogy. We didn't actually play against guardsmen. We played against sisters, which were 5-man OBSEC squads with that are relying on armor saves. They have no chance against Armature Warclave charging into them.
I think you can make an argument for a big knight in the list, but that's like it. I still think the all armigers is better, but if you wanted to, you could.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, you might want to bring like one big one, just if basically you're gonna bring one Majera, but you can make it work, but it's still more of a liability than anything else.
Yeah, I agree. I could see bringing one Majera because that's the number you're allowed to run as Chaos, because it could just straight up be your Warlord. But if you run 2, then like you can't put Warlord traits or relics in the second one because GW doesn't know how to use keywords.
Right, and if you can't put traits or relics on a big knight, the big knight is kind of shitty. So
yeah, I think an Infernal Majera is like pretty excellent though. It's like pushing the lightning cannon to damage.
Yeah, but you don't want to be running Infernal like War Dogs, like War Dogs.
But you can just bring 2 detachments because the Chaos Knight list doesn't actually have any use for its command points.
Yeah.
And the new thing says your whole army needs to be knights, not your whole army needs to be the same household. And if a detachment has no super heavies in it, it only costs 3 CP. So your 9 War Dogs goes into 3 CP detachment of Iconoclast stuff, and then you bring a Megara in its own Infernal detachment with a bunch of Lightning Lock Moriaxes, and that's the list. You've done it. It's great.
Just to be clear, it's if you have a Titanic, not something with a super heavy keyword. I know those are synonymous, but
you are correct.
To put a final note on that, I think as of right now, Ben and I are on 9 Warglaves with a household trait of 6 hit explode, reroll 1 hit roll, and you're playing Infernal.
Iconoclast for them.
Iconoclast, right. So you have the extra attack and AP on the charge, or sorry, first round of combat, and then you take 6 Moriaxes, and you have them have reroll 1 hit roll and have extra AP within 12 inches as your awesome trait, and then this one you do as Infernal because you like upgrading their guns. And then each of the guns are lightning locks and Volkites.
Yeah, each one takes 1 lightning lock and 1 Volkite. That way you can buff whichever gun is more important. Because like a buff Volkite can just like shoot Generator by itself, which is because it's 6 neg 1 3 at 5 attacks. And yeah, it just does so much.
Or you get it within 12 inches, and all of a sudden you're in 6 neg 2 3, and that's just like that can kind of like yeah,
like oh yeah, the Pistol Custode unit. Like all right, start making invulnerable saves, I guess.
Yeah. That's where we're on Knights. We're also of the opinion that even though they have the Free Blade detachment, the Chaos Knights, I'll say Legion traits are just better than what you can get from the Free Blade detachment. So I think you should play Chaos.
The Free Blade thing is Imperium, not Chaos.
Right.
Dreadblade.
If you have Knight models.
Oh, understood. Because you could just play your models however you want. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Free Blade thing really buffs the bigger knights more than the little ones, and the big ones are just like not getting there because you can only make a couple of the little ones. You can only make 1 little one per detachment a character, and the Free Blade detachment really rewards characters. I don't know, it's just not quite getting there.
So that was my Saturday. Then on Sunday, Chris and I actually played a game. And I brought the Agents of Bile. Creations of Bile.
Yes, the Creations of Bile, they got some bite to them. You know, I brought my Death Guard, and they were really worshiping the False Emperor that day because there was a lot of 5s and 6s just getting additional hits from the Icon of Excess.
Yep. I'm sure most of our listeners know already, but Slanesh definitely won the Chaos Mark wars. You got the best defensive spell. You got the best icon, as in you actually have an icon you want to take, which makes your melee the best. And you also have the best shooting because of the
Noise Marines.
Not Noise Marines, the double shoot.
Oh, Endless Cacophony,
strategy.
yeah.
So
yeah, the icon of excess exploding on 5s is completely ridiculous because it's like not that much worse than fighting twice in Khorne, but fighting twice costs 3 command points, and exploding on 5s just happens all of the time now. And if you bring a sorcerer, it's 4s. So like I don't know, like a prescience unit of Chaos Space Marines puts out, I think, more melee attacks than anything other than like Behemoth Gene Stealers.
yeah. I actually never got prescience off once against Chris, but like
Fair enough.
prescience up a squad with the icon and then use 1 CP on the Masters watching so they can reroll everything. Just reroll anything that's not a 4-up because the map says that a single hit is worse result than you're expected.
Man, that's ridiculous. Yeah, you just reroll everything when your 4s are your extra attacks.
And 2s are successes. Yeah.
Yep.
2s hit and 4s explode.
And then
and Death to the False. Or and can you use veterans in Aegis or no?
you can.
You can?
Yeah.
Oh man.
You're also strength.
And they're strength 5, right?
Yeah, you can. I actually wouldn't be. I kind of want on their map. I wonder if prescience rerolling everything, Chaos Space Marine unit, like a 10-man squad could take out a knight. I wouldn't be surprised if
the math is approaching, yes, but also knights aren't great. But baby knights, like that's the thing you actually want to be killing. It could definitely kill a baby knight.
Yeah.
I missed the last couple of shows. I apologize I wasn't here. I assume we talked a bit more about the data slates and the big changes.
Yeah, the big difference this podcast is now we've actually played a bunch of games of things. So
yeah. I was just gonna throw in my 2 cents because I wasn't there. I think that, and the what we're seeing is kind of playing out as how I thought. Admech easily got hit the hardest, and while Drakari got some nerfs, some of the things that went down in points were really questionable, and I think that the homunculus stuff is problematic, which we're about to see. The orc stuff, I still don't know how to feel about. I feel like orcs are still just very good, but I really struggle to wrap my head around the orc changes. Like, yeah, their best units got nerfed for sure, but their second best units really aren't that far behind, and they're still just like completely viable.
So the nice thing about the orcs nerfs is like there are certain things you can do now to actually counter actually have like a reasonable matchup into them that you couldn't do before. Thinking about my Iron Hands list, the Super Contemptor Dreadnought can actually just look at one of your 3-man squads and be like, I'm probably going to kill 2.5 of them. And before it used to be, I'm going to kill 1 of them really well. And that's like, that means I can actually trade efficiently as that model needs to trade, or work efficiently as that model needs to work in order for my army to feel worthwhile.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, do I still think they're too good? Absolutely, because they were like, even if you knock 10% off their win percentage, they're still too good. And not allowing them to still take similar amounts of buggies, and their best plane and one of their second best planes means they still can almost essentially build the same list. Slightly worse.
They just have to take more commandos.
I'm actually on Def Coptas. Def Coptas are just like, if you told me I'm not allowed to play Scrap Jets anymore, I'm just going to replace them with Def Coptas. It's so close to the same unit. The anti-tank firepower is exactly the same, and you just change the anti-infantry firepower into anti-infantry melee on a body that can move 14 inches and fly and declare charges. Like, I don't know. That unit just boggles my mind every time I look at it.
And then fly away.
Like 4 wounds each with -1 damage taken, which just means that every time you go to kill them, you end up like either overkilling them with like these huge anti-tank shots or underkilling them with autocannon. Like damage spills over awkwardly. It's gross. But anyways, want to start hopping in, talking about some of these lists, or do we have anything else you want to hit on before we do that?
I already kind of talked about Necrons last time because I actually had gotten some games in.
Oh, fair enough.
Overall, I don't think the Necron buffs are actually going to fix their place in the meta because having watched some games, I'm not convinced that where destroyers are actually as killy as they need to be. Or it's not that they're not killy, but just like they're clunky. Like 210 point units are like bigger than most people are playing with. So even while that's like a fairly killy 210 points, it's gonna trade down a lot. And
yeah, the current meta is all about trading, and Necrons are just bad at that. Like your models aren't tanky enough to not get traded into, and they're killy enough to trade to always kill the thing they touch. But like you're just not, you're never trading up. You just and you're trading down in like really gross ways. So you're like trading your 200 point units for your opponent's 100 point units, and you just run out of models way too fast.
Yep.
And the bricks are still useless because 10 Witches picks up a brick for like a quarter of the point cost.
Yep. I haven't seen any Asher Militarum play, so I can't really comment on that. But that's the last thing we haven't touched on that we're not about to touch on.
All right, cool.
All right, so let's talk about the U.S. Open in Austin, Texas. So, like I said, Siegler won, and then let's run through the rest of the top 10 here. Second place, we got Sean Naden running Drukhari. Third place was Jack Harpster running Grey Knights. Fourth place, Anthony Vanella running Drukhari. Fifth place, Manny Chimo running Forces of the Hive Mind. Sixth, John Lennon, again, also running Forces of the Hive Mind. Seventh, Justin Moore with Cult Mechanicus. Eighth, Colin McDade with Drukhari. Ninth, Brian Jones with Pure Knights, Imperial Knights. And then 10th was Ivan Cho, again with Drukhari. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Half of the top 10 is Drukhari. So I feel like Drukhari probably made it out okay of the balance patch.
Yeah, Drukhari's natural predator was Admech, and Admech got their knees taken out from under them, and then Drukhari got access to a playstyle that is slightly less abusive than their old playstyle, but it turns out when like you're the next best unit, like thing just goes away, they're the best army again, and it's not particularly close. Maybe there's some Grey Knight stuff that's gonna... Oh, alright. Actually, so here's the real... Like, Grey Knights are also a predator of their old playstyle, but the new playstyle of like this like homunculus spam, Grey Knights are very bad at it. Grey Knights really struggle with the sort of targets that Drukhari are putting out now. And I think Drukhari are just going to be our new overlords again, unless we deal with this homunculus nonsense.
Yeah. Let's look at an actual list.
Yeah, let's talk about that first place list. You want to run us through, Chris?
Yeah, let's look at Siegler's list, because even though we are seeing just like a bunch of Drukhari winning again, I feel like this one is different from what we have been seeing, mainly just because, like they can't he's just been taking different things. We've seen Drukhari like persist through several FAQs. We saw like a whole bunch of like liquefier guns and racks before, and then that got nerfed, and then we started just seeing a whole bunch of raiders, and Admech came around. So let's see what Siegler brought up here. Zoom in on this. So first off, we got a patrol. He took a cut. This is a Coven detachment. It's a custom Coven. It's Artists of the Flesh. His HQ is the Homunculus.
So that's -1 damage taken to non-vehicles. So every single thing's a Dreadnought.
Yep. The Homunculus has Master Regenerist and the Animus Vitae. Warlord. He's taking 3 units of racks here. 2 like minimum MSU units here, and then 1 what is this, 18
Yep.
racks. Yeah,
I guess people haven't played against racks in a while. Do you want to talk about their stat line, what they're doing, Ben?
Yeah, so Rax are toughness 4, but toughness 5 when they hang out with their homunculus, with 5 up, feel no pains, and then an invulnerable save that ranges between a 6 up and a 5 up, depending on how far the game has gone. And they are naturally 8 points each for reasons. So they are cheaper than Plague Bears, but have more toughness, the same invulnerable save, sometimes, the same feel no pain. And also their melee weapons are AP and always wound on force. And they have more attacks. Basically what I'm saying is I'm grumpy about my Plague Bears. But no, so they're in melee, they are like fairly killy. They're not like the most ridiculous thing. They're not witches. They don't just like blow things away, but they are a threat to literally any unit in the game. Like you can't just hit melee with them forever, because unless you're a melee specialist, you're not killing them, and they will just like eventually grind you off of whatever objective they're touching you on. And then they're miserably tanky. Like just shooting at them is completely miserable. They're orc boys with feel no pains and invulnerable saves, but they're also cheaper, like for reasons, and they're not significantly worse at melee.
Also, when you're talking about resilience, it's not even like you can fire 2 damage weapons to get by their feel no pains, because as we said before, their chapter trait is -1 damage taken.
Yeah, that's super important. The multi-damage weapons are bad against them, because normally, let's say you blow past feel no pains, and like if you fire your Volkite Contemptors at them, well, you're wounding them on 3s, not 2s like you do against most Drakari infantry, and then you're 1 damage, and then they have a 5 up into a 5 up, and like you just don't kill them any.
Yeah.
And then like the 60-man squad is just like actually killing. I believe they have 2 attacks each. Hitting on 2s because Drakari do that in melee for reasons. Wounding you on 4s no matter what your toughness is, because it's poison. It's all AP1. Except for the squad leader, who I believe is AP2. The corrosive whip's got some extra damage on it. I think I forget the exact stats on it. I think that was just like I had some points left over, not a significant choice, but I could be wrong. And that big brick of Rax is just going to sit on something and hold it forever.
Let's move on to elites. He's got 2 squads of elites, all with monstrous cleavers. Grotesques. Yeah.
Grotesques are racked with more melee and 4 wounds each. Also, I believe their toughness 6 when they're near the homunculus, or 5 when they're not. So, yeah, just unbelievably hard to kill these things. Like multi-wound models with minus damage taken and feel no pains means that you're always having obligated to shoot like these really high damage weapons at them, and then you're either underkilling or overkilling them. You have a bunch of damage that doesn't spill over, and it's just there's no way of killing them efficiently.
Yep. And rounding out this patrol is going to be 2 units of 2 Taloses each. Talos has got Heat Lances, and
yep, gauntlets are again just like good, reasonable melee weapons with poison. Heat Lances deal d6 plus 2 damage for some reason. They have 2 of them. They're 18 inches, or maybe they'll be 12.
Are they hitting on
new
3s?
Heat Lances I think are 18. And they're strength 8, AP4, d6 plus 2 damage. Taluses are fairly fast. They fly. They're T7. They have 1 million wounds. They're -1 damage taken. They have feel no pains. Yeah, it's again, this unit is super tanky. This is, I think, the unit we're probably going to see a lot of Dark Eldar players going to replace their Dark Lance Raiders, because Raiders are now at a reasonable point cost, and they can switch. They still have an option for something that's not any reasonable point cost. Like it's 105 points for 2 shots at 8 neg 4 d6 plus 2 on a platform that is very resilient and also good at melee.
Yeah, so even if you try to tag it and tie it up in melee and shut down the shooting, you're basically sacking something appreciable there.
Yeah, you're not going to tie them down. They're going to kill you off of themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. and there's like 4 of them. So. Yep.
All right. Second patrol. This is Dark Technomancers. So we're seeing the Succubus for the HQ here. She's got the Triptech Whip. She's a Show Stealer, Quicksilver Fighter, and took the Hypex Combat Drug. What does Hypex do again?
Hypex is extra movement, if I remember correctly. So again, Drakari allowed to do things on factions aren't. You can just like take your Succubus and your homunculus detachment for reasons because she doesn't need her tractor tactic, and she's super murdery. She's a little bit less murdery than if she was like the full on
murder witch,
murder succubus, but he didn't have the third, like he doesn't have a fourth attachment to take a witch attachment. So she gets to just go here and still exist in the list for reasons. She's 95 points now instead of 65, so it's a little bit less egregious, but it's still kind of silly that he's just like allowed to include her. I'm not salty about this list at all, by the way. I'm like super happy about it. All right.
So you got another MSU unit of Rax just to fill the patrol requirement, and then for his heavy support, 2 units of 3 Cronoses each, all with Spirit Vortexes. One of them in each squad has a Spirit Probe.
Yeah, so Vortexes are just flamer weapons that in GW's Infinite Wisdom, they did not exclude Spirit Vortexes from the Dark Technomancer nerf, so they're still just a flamer weapon that gets bonus damage and bonus to wounds without ever being a threat to the guy who's shooting it. Because I don't know. I literally have no idea why Spirit Vortexes were not nerfed, unlike all the other flamer weapons with Dark Technomancers. But as long as they're not, we're just going to keep seeing these units of just like a bunch of Cronoses with Spirit Vortexes and Dark Technomancer detachments.
Yeah, and also like each of these squads has the Spirit Probe too, so that gives it the 6-inch aura of reroll ones and ones to wound melee for any core or character, and these are core, so they give that to themselves. So again, can't even tie it down.
They are buffing themselves, and they're buffing the Rax. Also, of note, Cronoses have a strat that can allow them to stand up Drakari models into other units. So if you ever have like a squish as they kill things, so if you ever have a squishy unit and you let Cronoses crash into them, they can just start spitting out Rax back into that big unit.
Gross.
Yeah, it's
like D6, right?
What's up?
It's like a lot, right? It's not just like a D3.
I don't remember the exact strat because I've never read it because I don't play factions that give up that particularly easy, but I don't remember, to be honest. Sorry. It hasn't come up in my games, and I don't play against Dark Eldar that often.
That's fine.
All right. Last patrol here. All the Black Heart. So this is like ball detachment. So we're taking a 4 Sliff, 4 Urguls as part of the Court of the Archon.
Yep.
So no 4 Sorg slot there. And our HQ is of course an Archon. He's got the Jin Blade, and he's got his Splinter Genius is the what is that? Right?
Yeah, I believe that's CP refund. I can't remember. Yeah, I think that's the CP refund.
Probably.
He also looks like he's got the Fight Last going on over there. Oh no, he doesn't, because he took the Jin Blade. Interesting. Then we got 5 Rax. Again.
Oh no, the Splinter Genius isn't the Warlord trait for regen. Once per game, this Archon can fight twice.
Oh, this is the okay. Ancient Evil is the Fight Last. Splinter Genius is the Archon upgrade, so he's an upgraded Archon. All right, and then again, because we're playing Drakari and we can just put anything we want anywhere, we have Rax as our troop choice for our Cabal detachment.
That makes sense.
And then some Mandrakes, because Mandrakes are excellent at every secondary in the game because they forward deploy and teleport. All right, so yeah, this attachment was free because we're playing Dark Eldar. We didn't want to bring Cabal warriors because they're not excellent outside of Raiders, and Raiders cost too many points now. So we just got to take Rax because Rax are excellent. And then some Mandrakes because Mandrakes. So basically, this was like a free attachment that let us bring a Archon, and then gives us access to Agents Effect, which is still just insane stratagem, and also the Fight Last Archon with an upgrade. Because why not? GW needs to fix everything about this list. Like GW needs to. Like there's no reason that Dark Eldar should be able to be putting anything in any detachment. It's completely ridiculous, and I can't believe that we're this far into that book and we're still allowing that to happen, because that's been a pretty clear issue with this book from like day one when people started like throwing out these lists. We're just like, wait, hang on. You're saying that Coblate Warriors are only good in the 10-man squad, and then you can just take Rax for all of your other troop choices. Like, yep, you can do that.
Makes no sense, but you can do it. I just checked Anthony Vanilla's list too, and it's pretty similar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Aiden, can you do a similar list here?
So, one of the things I'm like more concerned than anything about this particular version of Drakari is supposedly they're playing with an already future balance patch, right? Like GW was like, this is the 2021 point cost, which means like what we're seeing here, we might be seeing for a year and a half, right?
Well,
saying chapter
they did say they were going to do quarterly updates,
right? Do you think like actually in 3 months they're going to be like, oh, we didn't nerf them enough? Surprise, our book that's not released yet is already invalidated for this particular section?
It should be. That is what they should do.
That is 100% what they should do. Will they do it? That's a entirely different question.
I guess so. Let's put our mind in GW's section. We want to sell a yearly book called Chapter Approved. Can we get away with just doing missions, or do we need to put points in there?
No, you can just do missions.
You just do missions because, I mean, technically speaking, Chapter Approved doesn't have points in it.
Yeah, if you were just like, hey, here's a book with new missions in it, I'm in. I'll buy that book.
Yeah, I'd buy it.
I think you should be doing digital point upgrades anyway.
I mean, to be honest, the only reason I didn't buy the last Chapter Approved was because it wasn't ring bound and it was basically the same book. You know?
Yeah, that's the same reason I didn't buy it. There's no new missions in it. I don't need it. Like,
yeah. If there's new missions in it, and if it's ring bound again, I will spend the $25 and buy it because
and like if the new one doesn't have missions in it, I'm probably not buying it again. Like if we're just on the same mission set, because like unless there's something wild in there, I don't need it. Like I don't need a paper version of points that are going to be outdated in a couple months. But if it has missions in there, I will absolutely buy it because missions are great. I like to have a physical copy of my missions when I'm playing them. So yeah, like, and I think most people are on that. Like, if the new books have missions in them, people are going to buy them.
Yeah. So I use like an iPad for like most of my stuff, and I have my rules digitally. But when it comes to missions, I still very much prefer like having like the physical book because it just makes it easier when you have like that physical thing to reference, and while you're inputting like what secondaries you're instead of like flipping through like each one of your apps, it's just easier. And also, you can just like hand the book to somebody.
Yeah. So essentially, we're all in agreement that points can be digital. So there is some hope that like it's not going to be a year and a half.
Yeah, there needs to happen with Drakari. And if like we live in the world, we absolutely refuse to nerf Drakari again after we've nerfed them 4 times. Then they need to buff every other faction. And I don't know, that could happen in a digital upgrade sheet, right? They can just be like, boom, everyone else gets to play with 2,200 points. I mean, they're not going to say it that way. They're going to make everyone else cheaper. So, like the game's been really unbalanced for a long time, and it's better now that there's one boogeyman. I've been saying this for a while. Like, it feels worse, right? We're just like, all right, well, Drakari are just going to be our unstoppable overlords forever. But from GW's perspective, from a game balance perspective, if you have 5 factions running roughshod over the entire meta, it's really hard to figure out what the correct balance point is. If Drakari are just smashing everyone, you could just be like, all right, cool. Drakari get the nerf hammer, and then you can see where the dice fall, and the dice will hopefully fall in a much healthier place.
Yeah. See, I can understand from GW's perspective why, like in particular, Rax might not have had the hit, because like if you think about like the negative play experience, like think about what we're talking about, like, oh, witches can go into warriors and kill everything, and the murder succubus, and the cabal warriors that like can shoot out of the raiders and always hit on 2s, and the raiders being OP, and like Meanwhile, Rax are just kind of sitting there being like, I'm super efficient, but I'm not. It's kind of hidden, right? So when you think about all the changes and all the complaints and feedback they were getting, I kind of understand why this was kind of missed. It's their job to catch these things, but I also understand how it could have been missed. You?
Oh yeah, racks were always one of the most efficient point scoring units in the game, or points holding units in the game. But you never needed them because your opponent could never afford to shoot at your backline because their front line was just being completely massacred by a bunch of witches flying out of raiders that have free las cannons. So like you have to kill the witches that are like, because the 3-man witch squad that survived combat last turn, like you need to point stuff at them because if you don't, they're gonna walk over and kill all of your HQs because they can move like 18 inches and still declare charges for reasons. I know that's an exaggeration. But and then like you have to kill the raiders because they have D3 plus 3 damage last cannons with free rerolls to hit and invulnerable saves, and they move 14 inches, they can get angles in anything, and they fly. And they can jump if they really have to, and they can like people can like jump back in them, and the raider can go 14 and then shoot and then move 7, and all of a sudden it's like behind a wall that was 30 plus inches away from where the unit that got into it started from, and like there's just a thing that's threatening a backfield objective now. And like you just never had time to shoot at their backfield. So like, it didn't matter what was on their objectives. Why would they bother spending points on racks when they could just like buy more witches and just have like one more thing to throw at you later on in the game? So yeah, like people weren't bringing racks not because they were bad, but because the offense was so hilariously efficient. There was no need to. And now the Drakari meta is still very killy. Like this list still just like is able to kill you. But it's not as heinously killy, and it is ridiculously tanky. Like shooting at this list is miserable. What are the guns that are good against this list?
Just seems like a nightmare to shoot at.
Yeah, and then like you don't want to fight them in melee. Like they crump in melee. The grotesques are a disgusting counter charge unit, and because they're Drakari, they can advance and charge. So like, and I believe the base movement is like 8 for reasons, and they can come up and so they just go really far and clear charges, hit you. They don't really take damage with the swing back because most melee weapons are like 2 damage, which means against them it's 1 damage, and then they have 4 wounds each and feel no pains and invulnerable saves, and all of a sudden you're just like not killing them.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
Well, one of the other awkward things about this listed is it has a fallback plan, and that is just the rating force, I believe. Because while witches aren't great anymore, you can, even if they fix a thing where you can kind of just like mix and match whatever you want, you can still just do a rating force.
Real space raid.
Real space raid.
Yeah, this is a rating force. Is all your patrols don't cost command points. Real space raid is you take 1 of everything.
And that one's even more heinous because if I'm not mistaken, you can take as many different sub factions as you want and still get all their bonuses as it's currently written, right?
That no one's ruling it that way though. So the way it's being currently ruled is you take 3 sub factions and everything in that detachment is one of those 3 sub factions and gets it based on if it's a witch, if it's a witch, a homunculus, or a cabal. The reason we're seeing lists like this right now, though, is people want to take dark technomancers and the crafters of flesh, or whatever it's called, the artisans of flesh detachment, so that you can have your super tanky engines and then your unbelievably killy like flamer blobs. When the flamer blobs go away, because they will go away, I would not be shocked if real space raids just become like the way that you run Drakari.
Yep. I've kind of said my bit about Drakari. You guys?
GW, fix your shit. It's ridiculous. Like I
feel like
so
the
many
more
things
things
wrong with this
change,
list. There's so many ways of just getting free rules that they should not be able to get into this list without spending any command points on them. Without having there's no tax units. You can just take whatever unit you want in any slot that you want and not have to spend a tax on like a bad Cabal warrior unit because you just can bring homunculus instead because they wrote no restrictions for this book. This book was allowed to do whatever it wanted. And like it's been through and they buffed things. Like they brought some of the homunculus engines down, and that was a huge mistake because they were already close. And just weren't seeing play because other things were more broken. Like I don't think this is like the orc book. Like there's things in the orc book that you can point me at and just be like, yeah, this is very good, and I would agree with you. I don't think that exists in the Dark Eldar book. Like you can't bring things down. You just have to hit the good things with hammers is wait, just like don't buff anything until the book's at like a 45% win rate. Don't buff anything. That book's way too dangerous to buff things. Yeah, like same thing with like AdMech. Like, yeah, AdMech's busted. They have several vehicles that are just like really lackluster. The fact that robots came down 10 points, I don't think robots are close to playable in the best AdMech lists. It's fine that they came down 10 points.
I was watching a game on Tabletop Titans, and they were talking about how their list went up 250 points, like, or they lost 250 points of old models. And that game ended up being close when it was kind of already a skewed list on the opposite side. It was a bunch of Death Guard vehicles, which like AdMech still, they have some tools to pick them up, but like Death Guard vehicles are actually resilient enough into them to not just get picked up.
Yeah.
But moving away from Jakari for a second, why don't you tell me about some Tyranids, Chris?
Yeah.
Because while they weren't part of the data slate, they essentially got a data slate upgrade. We can kind of call their book.
Yeah, so I was actually just looking at Manny's list, and I wanted to talk about it. So let me bring it up on screen here. So, yeah, they in the latest Arctarius campaign book, High Fleet Leviathan got some rules, and Manny Chimo placed pretty highly here. He placed fifth with Forces of the Hive Mind, bringing Leviathan, High Fleet Kronos, and then a patrol of four-armed Emperor Gene Stealers. So basically, his list was for Leviathan Battalion. He brought the Swarm Lord because, of course, you are. But then his Tyranid Prime. This is where he started bringing in some of the new stuff. He took the trait Strategic Adaptation, which lets you redeploy.
Yep.
Without spending additional CP. He got a second Warlord trait for Swarm Leader, so you pick one friendly infantry or swarm within 9 inches of that dude in your command phase. You can reroll the hit roll for your next command phase.
Yep,
pretty strong. And then he took the Adaptive Neurolobe Relic, which is just a Kirov Zakula. Basically, anytime your opponent spends a CP, roll d6 on a 5-up, you get it back. You get one. And then he used the new Synaptic Link. I think it's new. Let me.
Yep, it's new.
Yeah. Unchecked. So he paid the extra 15 points for Unchecked Ferocity, which 6 is to hit auto wound.
Yep, in melee.
Regularly, Chris read all the lists when like Kevin, you're the Tyranid player. We should probably have Kevin read it.
Yeah.
Troops. He brought 2 squads of 12 Gene Stealers each, and then one big ass squad of Termagants, 27 of them, and then a squad of 10 Termagants.
In particular, it's a 27-man squad of Devil Gaunts, meaning they're all Devourers. And my understanding, what he was doing is just literally just putting these on the line and being like, if I go second, they go into hiding, and if I go first, they're gonna move out and double tap something.
Yeah, it's the whole thing where if you're playing like Cult of Duplicity, Thousand Suns, and you get like the brick of Flamer dudes. Just deploy them like right up front.
Onslaught lets you fire assault weapons at no penalty, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So they can like advance and just double shoot. Okay.
Yep. And then the last unit for his Leviathan is 5 Hive Guard, doing Hive Guard things. He brought a patrol of Kronos, so he's got the Neurothrope with Symbiostorm. 2 3-mans of Tyranid Warriors, and then 2 6-mans of Hive Guard. So he's got a Hive Guard.
Yeah. Of note, those Tyranid Warriors both have bioweapon bonds, so all of those Hive Guard are hitting on 2s. And rerolling 1s because they're Kronos.
And then the Gene Stealer Patrol, you got the Magus with Mass Hypnosis and Mind Control. and then minimum unit of Acolyte hybrids. Why do you bring the Magus? What is it? What?
You bring an HQ slot.
Yeah.
And it's the best HQ.
Yep. Those Gene Stealer cults have a very powerful psychic tree. And so Mass Hypnosis is -1 to hit, Campfire, Overwatch, Fight Last, all in 1 power. Mind Control is pick a unit, roll 3 dice. If you beat their leadership, you could get to pick one of their guns and fire it, or you get to fight with them as those.
So is it like Treason of Tzeentch?
Yeah, but
it actually goes off because you don't have any theory. You should put 2d6, you get 3d6. So the maggot, so it's just like he needed a troop choice and a HQ choice, and the maggot's the best HQ choice. More importantly, he gets a bunch of blips, so he can just like run those out on his front line, and now his opponent can't come within 9 inches of his deployment zone on their first turn, which means that he can actually hide his 18 Hive Guard and be completely safe from turn 1 assaults and even from airplanes. You can put them around because you can spend command points to get like more fake blips. So he can just like put blips all over his deployment zone. Not let any airplanes or units get within charging range of any of his units. Choose to put his Magus and his 5 dudes back into deep strike if he wants to really spend points, or just like on some of the blips that were towards his back end. And then like his opponent wasn't allowed to come close to him, and now it's kind of just like sitting outside of charge range, being sort of sad. So he gets to waste his opponent's first turn. And then if he goes first, he has 17 Hive Guard. He's just going to shoot something's dying. 34, double shoot one of them, like 47 attacks, most of which are hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s. They're all 8 -2 D3, ignoring cover. Like he's just completely sandblasting armor off the table. Like there's nothing that's actually resilient to Hive Guard shooting, with the exception of Death Guard. But he's so fast that he can just run in circles around Death Guard.
Yeah.
I know it's resilient to Hive Guard shooting, or point sufficiently durable.
Yeah. Sorry. Woo. Hey, at least Hive Guard are strength 8. All right, and like you actually have enough strength to like wound things.
Yeah.
But yeah, you are correct. And then the Gene Stealers also kind of bounce against the toughness 5 racks, don't kill enough of them, and then die. It's great. It's all great. It's wonderful.
Nothing is wrong.
Yeah. Yep. Manny's been running this list for a bit now. With I think he's got 1 Hive Guard to like put something else in. It used to be 18 Hive Guard. We're down to a lowly 17 now. I think that 10-man squad, the 10-man troop squad, is new. It's just like one more thing to throw across the table to get OPSEC to steal objectives, to do actions. Yeah, this list is really good. And there's not much more to say about it. It's just gonna take objectives with the Gene Stealers. The Gene Stealers kill almost anything that isn't have the Monculus keyword in melee. And the Hive Guard are just like there to force you to have a more proactive plan than like kill the Gene Stealers off the table. Because if your plan is to like play defensively and eventually deal with the Gene Stealers, you're just gonna lose to indirect fire before you can do anything.
Yeah. Do you think?
I think Tyranids are like. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you think this list only can exist because tournaments have been doing a lot more terrain recently, a lot more L's?
Yes.
Because my first thought when I see all those Hive Guards, like Hive Guard are on like 50mm bases, I believe like a 6-man squad has a huge footprint. So being able to hide 3 squads seems like kind of questionable to me.
Yeah, when I've played against Tyranids, like it was difficult for my opponents to hide like 2 units of Hive. Like you could definitely hide 1. Hiding 2 was
hiding 2. So there's a real chance that the 3rd unit doesn't get to hide. But keep in mind that with the blips, you can completely dictate where your opponent is or isn't allowed to put models if they go first. So there's like worlds where you just don't let people ever be close to your 3rd unit that's hanging out in the open. Like if you just deploy your 3rd unit on your back line, yeah, they're not threatening everything, but they can threaten still like objectives that are closer to you. and then just like blip out your opponent. And then if you go first, you just go like, all right, cool, pick them up, put them back on their front line because you can redeploy your units. So like you can just like deploy one of your units super defensively and then just redeploy it if you go first. And if you go second, well, now your opponent probably has to walk into range of it if they want to shoot at, if they want to like play the mission.
We got asked a question. What do you think of Manny's list versus Lennon's variation with 1 6-man Hive Guard and the Malceptor?
You want to go first, Kevin?
So I naturally like more well-rounded lists, and the Malceptor list is in theory a more well-rounded list. Though the current state of the meta might be just like hope to outskill your early round opponents and coin flip the last 2 rounds. I unfortunately think that's like kind of where the meta is a little bit.
I'm more in on this list. The thing I like, if you're looking at what the best thing is right now, like yes, this Dark Elder list is super murdery. It's not that fast. It doesn't have Dark Lances in it. Its anti-tank is like 18 inches. If you deploy 5 Hive Guard in the back and you just say you can't come within 9 inches of my deployment zone, your opponent can't actually get within range of those 5 Hive Guard. And then if they go first, if they want to play on objectives, they have to walk in your range of them. And if you go first, you can just redeploy them back onto the line. If you just take the 5-man squad, that's Behemoth that you're allowed to redeploy. So I like this list a lot more in the current meta. I think and also especially because like Dark Eldar can survive this shooting, but this is the best shooting that Tyranids are ever going to have in the Dark Eldar. Like there's not a better killer version like list of Tyranids other than just like here are literally 3 units of Hive Guard like buffed to just about maximum. The 5-man squad doesn't have a synaptic lure going on link onto it because we're doing Gene Stealer things, but like the thing we're putting on the Gene Stealer is auto hooting on 6s to hit and then giving them Chapter Mastery rolls, which lets them go out and hunt Jakara units. So yeah, I like this list more. I think it's just better.
Okay. Yeah. This list gets to just say if I go first, I win. And it has real tools to say even if I go second, you don't get to we play a game. And that's just like a powerful place to be.
Yeah, I don't know if this list is like quite on like I go first, I win. But with all of the Gene Stealers and all that stuff, like I still don't think you're quite blowing your opponent up. Like most lists are not going to get blown off the table by this list. They're getting really hurt. But sorry, go ahead.
So this list is strength 8, so can actually just like pick up buggies, right?
Yeah.
Into AdMech, if you go first, you have far enough range and great guns before they can put any of their defensive buffs up. So you could, and they're playing big units. You can actually just be like, I'm going to pick you up there too.
So the Hive Guard don't really have the volume of fire to kill more than like 1 enemy, though.
That's why the Devil Gaunts are there.
Gotcha. Okay. Devil Gaunt, yeah. Damn, Devil Gaunts, yeah. Devil Gaunts will kill like a unit. Maybe the Hive Guard will kill a unit. The Gene Stealers are kind of useless in that matchup, though. Like, you can't put the Gene Stealers in anything. I don't know. I'm back and forth on that going first, just like saying you win. But it's certainly going first is great. Like, this list likes to go first. But against AdMech, it doesn't mind going second. It just like uses blips and says you're not allowed to like solar flare within range of anything particularly important. Or within line of sight, anything particularly important, rather, and then just maybe loses a Gene Slayer blob. Yeah, no, I mean, this list is very good. I think Tyranids is probably our second best faction. Like, fairly confident that this sort of list is way better than anything other factions are doing right now, except for maybe Grey Knights.
It's also very good at Grey Knights because the guns aren't like unbelievably amazing into the Dread Knights, but they will just like pick up Dread Knights pretty fast and you can screen them out pretty well.
I actually think these are the best guns you can have in the Dread Knights. I think Grey Knights are our third best army. I would put Grey Knights at probably still a little bit too good, but I don't think they're as good as Tyranids. Both in that Tyranids win that particular matchup, and Tyranids I think are just more impressive into the rest of the meta.
Yeah.
Because also keep in mind that Tyranids just like are maxing all their secondaries. Like They're just going to look at you and go, I'm going to retrieve Arteria's data, engage in all fronts, and like some other secondary, and like, I don't know, to the last. Like, what are you going to do? Kill the 3 Hive Guard units?
Luck.
Yeah. To answer your question, by the way, on the Malceptor, I could see that Drukhari list felt like it was already one-upping with the -1 damage, because the D3 damage rounds really hates -1 damage if you're not rerolling them. And I could see a lot of lists going into trying to bring units that are -1 damage, because D3 guns are pretty sad into -1 damage. They're better than 2 damage, but still pretty sad. So I could see a Malceptor being slowly and steadily becoming the correct choice as the meta adapts to this list, if it stays as a top dog list.
Yeah, it's true. Malceptors are pretty good at making your Hive Guard able to kill your opponent. I'd be more interested in still running like 7 Hive Guard and a Malceptor. At that point, you start like running tools.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked if the Gene Stealer thing, if we keep seeing the Gene Stealers, but if we maybe stop seeing the things about the Gene Stealers. Gene Stealers are pretty good, but there's so much fight last in the meta right now. And if like this Drukhari list continues just to be the best thing, I think that the Gene Stealers are going to start really struggling to like put the damage output they need to get things off of objectives. And you might start seeing people just like having one Gene Stealer blob and instead going to like a bunch of like troop squads to just like throw onto objectives and then shoot your opponent off. I don't think we're ever going to see 0 Gene Stealer blobs. I think there's always going to be 1, but it might just be 1.
Yeah.
So what do you guys have as our top factions right now? I kind of already said mine.
Drukhari, Grey Knights. Third spot, I'm not too sure. I know my 1-2 is Drukhari and Grey Knights for sure.
Do you think that's better than Tyranids?
I honestly just don't have enough experience or familiarity to say. I mean, two showings in the top 10 for the Austin Open. I think that's a pretty good indicator of how they're doing. So in the absence of anything else, I guess I could say Tyranids, and that seems like a pretty safe pick.
Fair enough.
I think it, based on your and my discussions, Ben, I think it's probably going to be Drukhari, Tyranids, and then I actually think Chaos Knights seem really good. Like a more armature spam.
Yeah, that's fair. You know what kills a bunch of things with -1 damage? 14 Melta Lances.
All with blast, and then the you can soup up the oh god, whatever they're called. The Volkite? No.
The lightning locks?
The lightning locks would be 3 damage, so you actually are getting through the feel no pains again.
The lightning locks are 1 to 2. The Volkites are 2 to 3.
Yeah, it's the Volkites.
Yeah, so I was after the changes to Chaos Knights, I was looking at my armigers and then looking at the Moiraxes, and the Volkites look actually really good now in this meta. I know previously the Moiraxes, the lightning locks were all the rage because they all Tesla and you could juice it up to be damage 2, but damage 2.
We're running 1 and 1, Chris. We're running 1 Volkite and 1 lock on each of our knights.
I was actually thinking that too, because then that gives you a bunch of choices, because you can only juice up the one gun, right?
Yeah, but lightning locks are base strength 6, so if you run that, you could be like, all right, one of my guns is strength 6, you make 1 feel no pain against it. The other one is also strength 6, but damage 2 now. And it just gives you so many options for, like, depending on what you're shooting at, which one's good. You're like, oh, I want damage 2 against all my targets. Cool. Buff the lightning lock to strength 7. Or, oh, you want damage, like, 3 and strength 6? Well, we could buff the other one. I just think it does a lot for your options just to run 1 and 1.
Most of the time, taking different weapons on the same platform is a mistake. In this particular case, it's like heavy 5, heavy 6 shots. They both have the same range. They both have a similar enough profile, but the differentiator is that demonic surge, where you're only able to pick one of those weapons, and you kind of want to have both of those profiles available to you depending on situation.
Yeah,
locks are 20. Locks are 36, and Volkites are 24. But the thing moves 12 inches, and you're trying to get within 12 for extra AP
14.
anyway, so it's all the same.
Yeah. Another big thing to note with this, with the armatures is, if you think back to that example you were talking about before, where they just literally deploy one unit of Hive Guard on the backfield, 30-inch Melta actually can still reach out and touch them through the deployment zone, and the 9-inch
30-inch assault Melta. You can advance and shoot those things.
I'm actually fact-checked. I'm actually looking at the data sheet right now. The Volkite is 36.
The Volkites are also 36?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Great.
And
it can all reach the back end.
And depending on the general terrain, moving 14 inches probably also means that you can probably get some angles on some of those Hive Guard units too. So I think you have a very reasonable go first against them.
And your blast too. So the first couple shots, they're 6-man squads, you're just flat 3.
Yeah. I do think you probably lose 4 armigers on their first turn.
You absolutely do.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. Although Hive Guard are only 36-inch range, you could kind of play it safe. That's an interesting matchup.
Yeah, I mean, upside, once you start playing, they're all individual units, so it definitely makes it harder for them. It makes it way easier for them to overkill.
Yeah.
Shots.
Armigers also don't really the first bracket on an Armiger is barely a bracket. You're -1 to hit, but you're rolling a hit roll anyway, and you only lose 4 inches of movement, so you're still moving 10. And then your melee is really not that much worse because you're still just exploding on. Yeah, all right. You could convince me that Knights are our third best faction instead of Nids.
No, I had Nids. I had
you did second, Knights third.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yep. All right. I'm in on this because I think all of these things are actually really good into Grey Knight. We played a Grey Knight opponent with our Knight list, and we discovered that both in shooting and in fighting, War Dogs just trade up into Dread Knights in this really gross way, where 2 War Dogs can just outshoot a Dread Knight and outfight a Dread Knight, but then these things are the same point cost. So the Dread Knight goes in, kills the War Dog, all your War Dogs go forward, shoot at that Dread Knight, and then charge a different Dread Knight and just kill both of them.
You've lost one War Dog.
Yeah, and just and then the Dread Knights have the firepower to really threaten War Dogs and shooting. A bunch of them together can kill one, but then they're out in the open and they're just eating Melta guns. So all of a sudden that matchup just kind of feels good.
You know what? This makes me feel validated for having bought 6 Armigers over my time here.
Yeah, right.
How many of them are Moiraxes?
None of them are Moiraxes yet.
Fair enough. All right. Yeah, all right, Kevin. You've sold me. I was wrong. I think you're right. I'm replacing Grey Knights with Chaos Knights. My only question there though is secondaries. Grey Knights just have a better secondary plan, but
we won on the primary though.
But we just smashed the primary every game. Yeah, okay. Yeah, just having your looking at your opponent and just being my entire army are 5 obsec models that move 14 inches, are good at melee and have Melta guns. Yeah, it's so easy to win on the primary. All right. Anything else to talk about before we hop off?
Nothing from me. Kevin, how about you?
Surprise. I think we should do a end of the year Q&A. I know we're not quite there yet, but start thinking about some questions. We'll try to make that happen.
That could be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. If you got questions you want to ask us for our Q&A episode, we'll do that in a few weeks, I guess. Drop them in YouTube comments, drop them on Twitch. We have a Twitter allegedly.
If you know us, feel free to just direct message us. We'll put them on a list.
That too. But yeah, in the meantime, thank you everybody for listening. Streaming live Monday nights, 7:30 p.m. Eastern at Twitch TV/3D6Charge. Try to do the show every week. Very much for listening, and have a happy Thanksgiving. During Thanksgiving, don't roll any ones, especially when you're going for that wishbone.